Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy. Well, Jeff, some people might be wondering concerning our articles tonight, what do the following have in common? Russia and its naval bases in Syria, the U.S. and Israel's threats against Iran, and the current and extreme widespread drought. Well, one thing is for sure, they all tie into the fulfillment of Bible prophecy. Now, for the first of our articles, over concern of the safety of its base, Russia is threatening to pull out its servicemen deployed at its naval base in the port of Tartus in Syria if it comes under attack. Now, there has been fierce fighting in the Syrian town of Philippo and attempts to take over Damascus. The Free Syrian Army has threatened to attack the base for Russia's support of the Syrian government.
Now, earlier this month, Russia sent a fleet of ships, including a set of 5 giant amphibious assault ships capable of carrying large amounts of military personnel. However, Russia insists it was nothing more than a planned military exercise, and it would be up to Russia's president to order an evacuation. Now, Russia's port of Tartus is Russia's only naval base and the only foreign naval base that they would not abandon it unless absolutely necessary, because it provides maintenance and technical support to Russian warships in the Mediterranean.
Russia is strongly against an international intervention in Syria and has vetoed 3 UN resolutions. Now, Moscow insists that it doesn't want to take or force infringements of a state's sovereignty, but it will act if need be to protect its 30,000 Russian citizens living there and its 50 or so military personnel at the base.
The latest UN resolution may be used to step up pressure on Russia and China to start to take a stand against President Assad. Interesting to note, the United Nations can condemn President Assad's government. However, when Kofi Annan was negotiating his 6-point treaty, it was clearly seen as the only option at the time, and they simply don't have an alternative. Now, British Foreign Secretary William Hague revealed the UK plans to step up its aid for the Syrian opposition, giving them so-called non-lethal help.
Now, this occurs just after it was leaked that President Obama has a secret plan to assist the rebels as well. Assad has essentially become this boogeyman, just like Gaddafi, and the Western leaders would rather support anyone, including jihadists and unknown elements, in this movement than to support Assad. The thinking is that if we can get rid of Assad, everything will be okay. And this, of course, is a naive approach that will do no help, as one person said.
Russia has voted against that resolution that was drafted by Saudi Arabia, calling it one-sided, saying it only pressures the Syrian government to stop the violence, not the rebels. Now, Russia is also saying that the West wants everything done on its terms, not allowing Syria's ally, Iran, to help with the negotiations. Pressure continues to mount against Russia and China to let down on their stance that Syria would be allowed to make its own choices without pressure from the international community.
Now, there are reports that President Obama covertly allowed the CIA to give rebel support to help oust Assad. It seems that if the West can't get the UN Security Council to condemn Assad, they will go through NATO and find other covert ways to get rid of the Assads. They have a bloody-minded approach, one man said, with this, which could easily intensify an internationalized conflict and make the situation much worse for the Syrian people than if they would just leave the situation alone.
Now, continuing in the news, an Israeli newspaper is reporting that the United States is getting ready for a military attack on Iran. According to Israeli media, U.S. National Security Advisor Tom Donilon has told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that the Pentagon is seriously preparing for a possible attack should diplomacy and sanctions fail to pressure Tehran into abandoning their nuclear program.
Mr. Donnellan stated that if talks fail with Iran, military action will become necessary. The article also discussed information on U.S. weapons that could be used in an attack on Iran. The Secretary of the U.S. Air Force, Michael Donnelly, said last week that 15-ton bunker buster bombs have been built to target Iran's underground nuclear facilities.
Now, last week we reported on how scientists are agreeing with the changing of the Earth's climate is causing these extreme weather patterns in the United States and the rest of the world. Our last two news articles for you tonight focus on the enormous impact the climate change is having on our dwindling food supply. Larry McGee is standing by to tell us more. Larry, is this the beginnings of the famine in the United States?
All indications certainly appear to support that conclusion, Jeff, and to furnish further evidence of the deterioration of the planet's firmament and its impact on climate conditions. This week, residents along the Illinois River are reporting one of their harshest summers to date. Illinois fishing guide Buster Colgin describes the heat as tremendous and painfully recalls one of the worst runs thus far. 5 consecutive days of scorching heat reaching up to 108 degrees atmospheric temperature. According to Colgin, every morning brings evidence of aquatic life which is simply being overwhelmed. Scores of carp exhausted, dead, and floating, suffocated due to extreme heat, which is lowering water levels and depleting rivers of their original levels of oxygen. Wisconsin, Tennessee, and Kentucky have all been struck by similar chaos. And in Iowa, 37,000 sturgeon were recently found dead along a 42-mile stretch of the Des Moines River. Normally, by this time, certain parts of the Illinois River would have stood at 6 feet. At present, they are at 2.4, and residents have scarcely received 2 inches of rain for the year. For men like Colgin, the impact of the drought extends beyond just the ecological. As a business owner who operates a bait and tackle shop, he is losing up to $1,500 per week. And at this point, his profits would have all but dried up if not for his sale of beer. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Good time, Jeff. Back to you.
We appreciate your report, Larry. Gatan, maybe with reports like these showing how the earth is suffering so much, people will begin to wake up and see that there are consequences for sin. Now, as we continue to see these effects, nearly 2/3 of the country is now suffering from a punishing drought after another week of scorching heat and little rain. These are some of the worst drought conditions since the 1930s Dust Bowl.
Amazing. ABC News recently interviewed some of those who have been affected the most by this relentless drought, the American farmers. And here's what they had to say. John Kefner from Manhattan, Illinois said, "For 30 years, I've grown corn and soybean on my farm. This is what a healthy ear of corn looks like. But unfortunately, we are finding a lot of ears that look like this."
Illinois is facing its worst drought on record, and it's not alone. Half of America's corn crop is now rated poor quality. This in turn drives up the price of feed for livestock since corn is a major part of their diet.
Jan Huber from Crescent, Illinois is a hog producer, and he said as the price of feed goes up, animals cost more to take care of. From this point forward, there absolutely is no profitability in the pig business, and we're going to have to start to downsize or even liquidate because the profits are going to be so short.
When feed for animals increase, so does the cost of the animal and all its byproducts as well. Prices for chicken, eggs, meat, and milk will all soar. Overall, food prices are expected to surge a whopping 4.5% over the next year.
Well, it's amazing how one particular crop can affect so many other areas of food staples. Now, Darrell Obermeyer, a farmer in Nemaha County, Nebraska, was forced to use his winter feed 2 seasons early to keep his cows alive. An Arkansas rancher, Jim Tapley, had to move his whole herd of cows 75 miles away to find greener pastures. Now, Oklahoma City is one of the cities currently in extreme drought. They recently tied their all-time record high temperature, which was a scorching 113 degrees, something they haven't done since the 1936 Dust Bowl.
Wow. Katan, looks like some people are actually getting a taste of what life was like back in that time period.
That's right.
Now, in our last broadcast, we reminded our viewers of an eye-opening prophetic word magazine written by Yisrael Hawkins in June of 2007. We were flooded with calls this week with viewers requesting their free copy. If you have not yet requested the true cause of global warming issue of the prophetic word, call or write the House of Yahweh today. You'll be amazed with what has really caused the climate to change and how simple it would have been to reverse its devastating effects.
Now, you can write the House of Yahweh at P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. Or you can call them at 1-800-613-9494. And for all calls outside the United States, please call the number on your screen.
Now grab a pen, paper, and your Holy Scriptures. Up next, Yisrael Hawkins, the only one offering the solution to these problems. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
And I'm Katan Alexander.
Thanks for watching.